Tangle friends. Today we're going to work on this lovely tangle called Spiral Rose right here. It is by Leanne Weissmuller and it's new to me. I love it so much. I've been teaching myself flower tangles to work on a door project that I'm going to be doing here soon. And it's perfect for this time of the year. I don't know about you, but the season here for roses is just really almost past peak. The roses are just everywhere, incredibly beautiful in every color that you can imagine. I think this is most appropriate for today's tangle. We are going to be working on a colored background that I made using Lindy's magical shaker dies. They look like this. You can get them online at lindysgang.com, and I did do a tutorial on how to do these colored backgrounds that I will link in the description below for you. So the materials we're going to be using today are, besides our Zendala that has the colored background, are just 2 micron pens. One is a PN for filling in the larger areas, and the other is the 01 for doing our actual tangle. I also have a soft graphite pencil for making our string, an eraser in case I want to erase the string to make it just right. And then for coloring, I have this array of tone and tone colored pencils that I grabbed to do some shading on our rose. That is also going to include a white General's charcoal pencil and a tortillon for blending white. We'll use that for our highlights. That's what's so pretty about using a really dark background like this. Okay, so let's get started with our pencils. And I am going to just do my string, tracing first my circle. And then we're going to basically just do a printemps. Mark the center of your circle approximately, and we're going to just spiral around just like we do a printemps. We don't want the spiral to be too close or else you won't have room to make your flux leaves. Basically, this tangle is made specifically of 2 things, the printemps and the flux leaves, like Rick's Flux. If you haven't learned flux, I also do a tutorial specifically on that, and I would encourage you to go back and look at that. I'll link it in the description below. Okay, let's get our spiral going. I'm left-handed and I spiral to the right. Take your time. And then, like we make our printemps, you're going to taper it off in the corner like that. Now I'll just do that with my 01 micron pen, ink it out so you can see it better. This gives you the chance to get your spiral just how you want it. Some days I'm really good at my spiral and other days not. But it will all work out. Okay, that's the start. Step 1. Step 2 is we're going to start building the rosette petals all around the spiral. And there's only one thing that kind of tripped me up when I was doing this. The thing that I need to remember for myself in starting this is the start. How do you start? The best way for me to remember that is to find that center point and consider this the bottom line. And this as well. From the bottom, we're going to build our flux using that line as a guide, pulling out our flux petal and stopping and tapering in the corner like that. Continuing on this with the dart, the bottom of our line, we're going to go out of the center at the top of this flux and do the same. Using this is a guideline for how far out to go with our flux. We're going to keep doing that. And it's easiest if you turn your tile coming out of the corner. You can make your flux long and slender. You can make it shorter and fatter. It will definitely get fatter when you get to this area, for example, because it's wider from this point to that point. And there we're done with our line work. Now we want to identify each of these flux leaves as a positive image, and in those negative spaces, those little interstices, we're going to go ahead and color that in. It's going to help our leaves really pop and for us to see the design better. I just changed my pen to the PN. Having so much negative space also gives you the opportunity to clean up a little bit. That means if you don't quite like the way your flux shape was, for example here, it should be more pinched in. I can go like that and correct. So it's a forgiving tangle. It's pretty magical too. I like those tangles that have really few steps, and this is one of them. It's basically 2 steps with, and then a third just filling in these negative spaces. So I'm working up here in the loft area where there are a lot of windows, and 2 are on the roof, the skylights, which make this lighting look like it's inconsistent because you can really see when the sun comes and goes. It gets really bright and then it dims, and I've got all the lights on that I possibly can put on because I don't have my camera lights with me. Okay, that's it. That is Spiral Rose. Isn't it beautiful? So before we shade, I wanted to show you one more thing. It's really fun to make these rosettes, these little rose spirals, move. By that I mean, if you start off center rather than in the center, like here and here, you get these looking like they're rolling around or moving in a different perspective. So that's what we're going to do next. I'm just going to show you another sample of exactly what we just did. I'm going to do maybe a little bit smaller, some overlap. This time I'm just going to go straight into my pen. But I will use my pencil to put that spiral string in to make sure that I get it right. Here we started our spiral in the center. Let's start our spiral down here, way off center this time. Corrected it a little bit here. We could come here and spiral it, tapered it in. And if you want to clean up those string lines, go for it. All right, so again, this is the start. Here is the dot, but I have to look at this as being the bottom. So here's the bottom of my flux, using the spiral as a guide. I'm coming back, pinching it down here. Then I'm going out of this top end, using that guide. So you really want to bump up against that and then taper back in. Otherwise you have too much negative space, too much black. And again, so this would be the bottom line. So we're going to come out of the corner. And this one I'm really kind of orienting these leaves in a bit of an upward position. Correcting this one down here. Again, coming out of the center. Just pretending I know where I'm going. So let's do one more, just so you get that concept really well. And this time I'm going to make it go over here. So you can't have a cluster of roses without some leaves. And as I did here, I'm going to just show you, I use my, I call this my Tangle. I taught it at Tangle U years ago in Portland. I call it spike, just for the main reason that we started out with a spike. So let's add a few spike leaves in there. It's super easy. I don't even really need to do a whole tutorial on that. So I'm making one spike. And you can either go straight from the tip, or you can come up further. I'll show you the next one like that. And then I like to bow out my veins from the midrib by bowing them. Instead of making them just go straight, you give this leaf a dimension. And then I fill in these, I weight the ends of those lines with little triangular spaces. And you can make them small, or you can get really dramatic. I like emphasizing the point. What I did on another sample of these in my sketchbook, I'll show you, is I made them more like rose leaves, in that I just did the same thing, except I made the ends, or the outline, jagged. And then if you'd like, you can add, in keeping in our theme from last time, we can add that beautiful Beadlines by Margaret Bremner. Oh, let's see, let's go. Let's weave it through. Okay, now we can shade. And like I said, I don't shade color with graphite. I just go tone and tone with a darker color. And I don't have all my pencils here, so I'm going to just go for what I have, which is kind of a magenta. That should show up And we're only going to shade all the way around this outside to make this look like a sphere. So we're giving it some darkness at the outside or the bottom, as if we're looking at the rose from the top down, and this area would be lighter. And get a little darker. I might go for another color on top of that. This is raspberry. That should make it darker even yet. Yes. Okay, so we have this center, which is definitely lighter, but we want to have a little bit of dimension in there. So I'm going to go in the corners to bring those out so they don't look so flat. Almost making a mid-rib line here. And then I'm going to get out my colorless blender from Copic, which is getting really, really dry. And I'm just going to blend those two colors together, trying to stay away from the black as not to pull that in. This blends into the tooth of the paper, making that colored pencil look more like watercolor. And then we would take our General's white charcoal pencil, and we want to stay away from this because this is in the light. We want this to be light. And then I've got my blending stump that is designated for white. I'm just going to blend that nicely until we get this subtle transition, taking down the hard line. So that's how I would shade each of those buds. And then let's do the same thing to give our spike some dimension. Nice and dark in there, and then we'll do the same thing with the highlights and our light charcoal. So here's my final shaded cluster of spiral rose, and I hope you enjoyed learning it as much as I enjoyed learning it myself. I hope you practice this tangle this week, because next week I have another to show you that is based on this. It's going to be a variation of the tangle. So I think you're going to really like it, but it will help if you practice this week on spiral rose. With that, I will say have a great week and hope to see you next time. Bye-bye now.